Commissioner Greenfield?
Here.
Commissioner Lane? Here. Commissioner McHenry? Here. Commissioner Patera? Here. Commissioner Walsh? Here. President Mossberg?
Here. Can I get a motion to approve the agenda, please?
So moved.
Second. Roll call.
Commissioner Bueller?
Yes.
Commissioner Greenfield?
Yes.
Commissioner Lane?
Yes.
Commissioner McHenry?
Yes.
Commissioner Patera?
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh?
Yes.
President Mossberg?
Yes. Statement of visitors, it looks like we have.
Our staff, so everyone,
Yeah.
we have Tina Brewer, our HR generalist,
Hi,
if you haven't
Tina
met
Brewer.
Tina.
Nice to meet you.
And then we have Tom Busby, our
Hey, Tom.
finance and accounting specialist.
Great. Verbal communications, staff.
None.
Start. None?
Jim?
Just the only thing I would say is we do have a new event, Santa's sleigh ride. Believe it or not, that'll be right around the corner. We do have limited spots left because there is only certain spots that we can fill up, but I do believe there's less than 20 spots. So we can't put anybody else in there. It's a trolley instead of taking the train, and then it's going to go through Lake Bluff. Something a little different.
Cool.
When is this?
This
Full.
December 14th, Saturday.
But it's full.
You know.
Not yet. There's a few more spots.
Oh.
So there's 20 more
Okay,
spots.
okay, we're out.
Is that the same day as
That
the
seems
It's
like
Wonderful
a
Life?
daddy-daughter thing.
I think so, too.
Yeah.
I do.
Johnson and,
I think John would love that.
yeah. Is this the time to discuss the board report, or does that come later?
That's the time when we do put it, we do discuss it.
Right now?
Yes.
So there's a lot in here. You referenced that marketing dashboard, which we talked about quite a bit at our committee meeting. Do you want to delve into it in our committee discussion, or right now?
Is it?
No, we talked about it at our committee meeting, but he references it
Right.
here.
I didn't see it in the past. I was looking.
Yeah, he didn't provide the actual document.
So Nikki and I touched base. I'll be at the Monday's meeting, the Facilities and Programs Committee, to address it if you want.
Okay,
So,
so we're addressing that. Great. In the fitness center news, that I probably should know this, but what is the annual plan 10%? What are those categories? I don't
Yeah, I
remember
didn't know
ever
that
seeing
either.
10%.
What is that?
So they get there's a senior one that gets a 10% discount, and then the annual plan for 10%. I think it's just a promotional that we did where we gave 10% off one of the months, and so that happened I think in the month of January or February. So those are promotional ones, and so we highlight them because there was additional monies taken off. Just like what we did, we waived this past month, so in October, we'll have another one that we'll add in there, and that'll be enrollment fees that we'll waive for the month of October. So yeah, you'll see that line item this coming month. So anytime this just comes right out of the system, anytime we do any promotional thing, we make sure we capture that data and that information. So that way we can keep track of it moving forward.
So that's not the family discount? I thought that was. You were.
That could be part of the family discount as well, but I do believe that we also offered the 10%. I can follow up with that and get you the.
Maybe for our Monday meeting?
Sure,
Just give us,
absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, that'd be great.
Yep.
And then the personal training stuff, are we talking about that on Monday too, Jim?
Yeah, actually, that is going to be probably the highlight. Talking about.
We'll let you know if it's a highlight.
That'll be a bigger discussion.
Oh, there we go. Okay, all right.
But
Yeah.
in this report, it would be nice to know what the goal was. Like, I have no real reference point to know if 3 was like, woohoo!
Yeah.
Or if like it was way off.
So at our committee meeting, we talked a little bit about how Jim defines success as we're approaching the end of our initial contract.
Yeah.
I have no idea if 14's good number, bad number, if 40 should be the number, if 10,
What is the number, like, what do you?
Yeah, so we're gonna go over that on Monday. We're putting together, what the initial goals were, and then what were the goals for the end of the year. We'll kind of recap what has happened with focus results, like we'll talk about all the promotions that they did, or we did, all the marketing.
Yeah, but
Um,
overall, what's your sense?
It's been, I will say, it's been challenging. Zach, who runs Focus Results, has had some health issues. He had health issues in the month of June. Unfortunately, I would try to reach out to him so that way we can meet beforehand. I guess, I don't know if it's a setback, but he has more health issues because his wife actually contacted me and said that she would like to sit down with me. Right now, Zach is unavailable due to some unforeseen health issues. So I could have a lot of clarity after I have a discussion with him tomorrow. That could be a whole different thing. I don't know
This
what.
is short of what you were expecting.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, for sure. This is
Right,
definitely
and that's what I
short.
thought.
We have some goals in the committee meeting, and we're short of what the goals were. So we want to make sure that we're in a position as of the end of the year, if we decide not to renew the contracts, what are we
Or how
prepared
do
to
you do
do?
something different with the
Right.
contract?
Or something different with the contract. We just want to make sure that we're well positioned to have those discussions.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When we need to.
Good.
So more to come.
Yeah,
Right,
you'll
so
have that
our goal,
information.
Like when you present these, it's just kind of like, what was our target?
Yeah.
Yeah, you'll have the initial target, and then we'll have even, when we did projections, what we projected for the remainder of the year. So there'll be two separate goals that will be highlighted.
It's good to see that racket sports are all up. You know, if you look at just September, year over year,
Oh, participation.
participation's up, which is, you know, really nice.
Are you in there?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Well, I didn't know if you'd signed up.
And remember, this is September, not October too, so
Right.
there's a little bit more growth in
Yeah.
October.
And then I had another question, which is the $10,000 grant for general infrastructure. What is it for? What are you thinking? You're gonna-
Yeah, so like
Is
it
that-
has come back to the board, I haven't received the check yet, so
Is it this year or next year or?
whenever they release it, so, 350,000 it was part of that capital bill, that overall capital bill.
Yeah,
And so, it can go towards the parking lot, it can go towards preschool, like, it's what you all deem
It
as.
could come tomorrow,
It can come next year, so I have a feeling it won't come until next year.
next year. Okay.
I think the $350,000 was pushed to
Happy
have
to
it
see
started
that.
process.
Okay. And then I see that you guys are looking at a draft of the winter program. I think it'd be good to have a pricing discussion in terms of looking at pricing, because once you lock that, you know, you're
Yeah.
kind of stuck for the next, up until
We're,
June?
we started that discussion.
I think
At
that's
the
for the
committee
next
meeting.
program guide, not for this one. I think everything in this program guide is already set. We were saying we couldn't affect pricing yet, because this is just for the winter program. Because it's like ready to go, just about.
I think
Is that
some of
right?
it was up for discussion, like you guys had mentioned, something with the fitness center. That would certainly affect the winter guide, because isn't fitness in there?
Well, yeah,
We talked though,
we talked about not,
not raising the monthly rate just yet. We could do that at any time. That was what was discussed by
I think
facilities.
we talked about doing nothing until we had a further discussion, which we were hoping to have on Monday.
Okay.
Right?
I didn't
But
have
what
that on
about
the
everything
agenda.
in the program? I mean, what has been the philosophy on pricing with respect to all programs? I mean, it looks like we're going to print, but I don't know what we're going to print with, and I don't want, I mean, this is starting our year, or, you know, our year starts in January, and this is when this starts, right?
It's all kind of coming together. So we've got budget, we've got program guides, you know.
A bulk of our
et
pricing
cetera.
doesn't get affected until spring and summer, majority of all of our pricing. Because a lot of times you run off the school year. So we'll talk about preschool tuition rates don't increase until August. Same goes for after-school care, so anything in that model. So there's,
paddle, we just discussed
Paddle?
that, can't change mid-season.
right, can't change mid-season. So majority of that. Now, you got fitness center, that could change. you've got some smaller little, you know, gymnastics class here.
The big ticket items,
The big tick, yeah.
Straight some.
got it,
Yeah.
okay.
But still, we're focused on it. They led the discussion at the committee meeting, and we asked for more information.
Yeah.
We asked for a little bit of historical information, so we kind of know what the price increases have been the last few years. So we're on it, and I know that's part of your, you know, finance committee
Well,
stuff too,
yeah,
the budget, they all go together.
Right.
And one of the things we talked about in the finance committee meeting was, and we're gonna be talking about the tax levy, but that if the tax levy were gonna increase, then we should look at increasing program costs as well, that the taxes shouldn't bear the entire burden of increased revenue, and we should
Yeah.
look.
Well, I think we need to, because the taxes alone,
To
the
move everything
CPI
up.
increase isn't enough to cover
Right.
the healthcare
And
costs.
you keep
So-
going backwards because, you know, you can't accumulate any of that tax money, so.
All right, more to come on tax levy. And anything else in the board report? Jennifer, anything? All right. So we talked about, I know this is D, not B, but we've talked about most of the facilities and programs. Is there anything else, Nikki, that we need to highlight from,
You know, just, I can just run through real quick, the NSSRA presentation, you know, the
Yeah, that's
executive
right.
director of that came in, he gave us a really great presentation, and one of their, you know, one of the clients who uses it, a 31-year-old man who's been using it since he was like a 7-year-old boy or something, you know, and all the programs he uses, and his mom, they came in, and it was a really nice, you know, presentation. Other things, dance recital, staff looked into a bunch of different options, you know, to try to make it more local than Carmel. Nothing will work. Unfortunately, there's no dates available on weekends, there's nothing that will work, so it's gonna be Carmel, but they're knocking it down to 2 days instead of 1 day. They're knocking the dress rehearsal down to 1 day because, the pre-K classes will not have, a recital this time, and so they don't need the 3 days, so that'll take the overall cost down for that. And then, we talked about, so as part of Focus Results and Fitness Center, we talked about, you know, possibly, Emily raised some great points about, you know, why can't we register for those things online? And so there's some, you know, big hurdles around that, but we discussed that, you know, it would be something we could continue to look into and see if there was a way to do that. With, you know, people then coming in and signing the waivers and the other things they needed to sign, just so there wasn't that barrier to entry.
You can't sign online too?
No, not for,
You know, for your
I know,
waiver?
we all ask this question.
Got it.
It's gotta be a better way, but.
Yeah.
that was really, I think, the highlights and the other stuff, I think.
I would, yeah, I'd add on the NSSRA, Jennifer was there too, that, there are 37 or 38 residents that participate in the NSSRA programs, and they participate in, I think it was 130 some odd programs, so fairly active. I thought the other interesting thing from a finance perspective, we right now levy separately for the special recreation fund, about $115,000 a year. 100 of that goes to pay for our inclusion in NSSRA. The fees, a little bit of a capital budget, et cetera, et cetera. If we were not part of the association, we would not be able to special levy for special recreation. We would have to find that $100,000 or the $115,000 bucket from somewhere else. And we don't have that. So I thought that was interesting. I didn't realize that if we brought that in-house, that would create a huge financial burden that does not exist right now. So anyway, I just thought it was a very good presentation, and I was really impressed with the executive director as well as everything they're doing, and Tim, the young man who came in. So anyway, I thought it was
And
good.
the only other thing that I thought was interesting, they're building their own facility, they've never had their own facility, they operate out of, you know, all the park districts like ours. And I'm just curious what that will do, you know, like he's saying there'll be, you know, many more programs there, but you know, how that'll affect, you know, the ones that are taking programs here, you know, if they're gonna try to keep it all, you know.
And they still wanna stay out, they
Yeah.
still wanna
Yeah.
stay out with their
Okay.
partner agencies, it's just some in-house programs,
So
Yeah.
they don't wanna bring
Right.
all the special need kids to one place and have them together. They want them out at the different park districts as part of normal, everyday society, so, which is great. Yeah.
I just had a question for them and I wanted to ask was, like, how, I mean, when I think that the pack was pretty high prices for the programs, do they have, like, a need base for, like, because it is a small group of people, and I was wondering, like, how do they decide who gets to come in? Is there a way you can apply, like, do people apply for it, or just because it would seem pretty expensive, the programs?
He talked about a waiting list.
Yeah, so you talking for aid or?
Yeah,
franchise?
like, yeah,
Your
for-
database.
yeah.
Yeah, their foundation does an incredible job of.
Are you still on the board of that?
I'm still, yeah, so we have to have a representative. I was chairman of the board last year.
Okay.
For 2 years, we could all rotate. The foundation will make sure no one goes, without a program of some
Right.
sort, so they'll find a way.
Thank you. Beach, you wanna go next?
Sure. So Ron, Chris, and I met with the village. We met with Kathy O and a couple other people, and we decided, or actually Kathy O suggested that we form a Blue Ribbon Committee.
We'll just call it like a task force or something. The blue ribbon concept.
What does it mean?
The best of the best, Franz.
It's like the
But then they,
top, I
yeah,
guess
then
so.
they asked Bob Wallace to be on it. I'm like, well.
Sounds like a kid called Miller.
I know.
Do
You like the gas Blue Ribbon?
No, go right
Committee?
ahead. Now we're talking.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so they are, we're waiting on the village, so they're going to put together a first meeting, which we think will be in November. Jennifer and myself are so fortunate to be part of that. We're looking forward to it. And then Chris and myself, we met with North Shore, Water Reclamation District, and we basically, you wanna sum that up?
They're kind of ready and willing to, do a project alongside our project, whatever our project may look like. So Tom Swarthouse was, I hadn't heard back from him, but he was going to a board meeting and just kind of letting the board know that after a 5-year hiatus, roughly, that the topic is coming back up again, and it might be time to do something like Bluff. He didn't mention that they had the funding, but he mentioned that they can borrow very inexpensively. So they would likely borrow at 1 or 2% or something like that to fund their portion of the project. And we didn't get into, well, we want you to kick in an extra this for this, that's for a later day. But we just wanted them to know that we were at the early stages of doing something about the beach, and wanted to advise all partners of that. So it was good. More to come.
And then Ron is in the process of conducting 2 beach forums. He had one last week, and then you have one tomorrow, just regarding the $350,000 grant. And getting feedback from the residents and sharing the plans. And there was one last week, and a couple of residents, they had different suggestions and ideas, and he's going to wait until tomorrow, and then put all the information together, bring it back to the beach committee, and then we'll discuss it, maybe tweak it a little bit, and then move forward. And then the last thing is, do you want to mention anything about parks?
Mom and Park, we're supposed to be.
Started demolition today?
Demolition today. So.
The old section, yeah, up there.
Wow.
I have a question. Is there any timetable for the beach project? I'm not talking about the $350,000 grant, that's separate, but for the larger movement on the beach?
I mean, at the earliest, it would be at the end of the 2020 season. That would be the earliest.
We talked about a year, so we've got.
Yeah, to get all of that stuff done. So, and that's probably a bit aggressive to think about starting at the end of next beach season. But that would be the earliest, and then
2021 is more realistic,
I would think so,
Yeah.
but
That's a good help to know.
Well,
I don't know how fast,
Park
you know.
horse on this one, you don't know about
fast as we can to kind of line up all constituents.
We're in
So
a
that we can
tugboat,
be in a position.
not a high-powered boat. It's gonna take for a long time to get this all together.
I was just curious, because you've got, obviously, if the plan is the right thing to do, first of all, and what other work has to be done, what we might do to make sure that the plan makes sense.
Right.
Funding the plan
Right.
with those ideas, because it's great, you said the Water Reclamation District is ready and willing, but you didn't say they were able. And, that's gonna be a major issue.
Yeah.
And whether we have to have a referendum for that.
I think we're at the point now where any next step that we take involves writing some pretty big checks. So we want to make sure that this committee gets together and comes through with a recommendation, supporting moving ahead fast with something, doing nothing, whatever, before we spend, any real dollars. The next step is probably some engineering studies, and that gets pretty expensive. Because all we have now is the engineering reports, but we don't have anything we can use to actually do any work. That would be the next step.
You have to do construction documents and detailed drawings. So you
Probably
don't do that until you really know you have funding.
That could be a couple $100,000 of engineering stuff.
Well, I think we also, I'm concerned that we don't have, excuse me, we have an engineering report, but we don't have anything that says that given the expectations for how the lake is going to be changing in the coming years, that the conclusions of that report make sense.
But I would say that your water level is a bit of a unknown.
No, there is a projection.
I don't know how you project.
What they can only do is show historically what's happened by
And where we are
not
today.
into it. And this is a preventative measure to stop, and when he gave the report to us, he can't say this is gonna stop this for 15 years, it's gonna stop it for 25 years, because you're looking at water tables that go up and down, continue to go up. So he's not saying this is going to be the preventative that's going to be in place for X number of years. He just can't do that because of the very little lake.
No, that I understand, but I think there are probably different opinions among people in the industry, people in the business, or on the scientific side, as to what, are we throwing good money after bad? Basically.
I think when the board selected this particular group, it was because of your amount of experience with Lake Michigan, particularly. He had an excess of 15 projects that they've done. So they were one of the preeminent engineering groups that have addressed the lake at all different sorts of angles. So I understand what you're saying.
I understand that, but quite frankly, I'm concerned that we got a report by a company that's going to benefit from getting the project.
Well,
And so it's to their benefit.
Project.
Yeah.
They don't have to be the engineer.
No, we paid them for the study.
We pay them just for the study.
We paid them for the study.
Yeah.
Right.
But, I think it might be, I think it would be useful to try to get a more neutral evaluation of, and I understand, no one can say what's going to happen next
No, it
year,
would be a
or 5 years, or 10 years.
Probabilistic based on historicals and current known facts. There
Right.
could be some forecasts in terms of how water levels will change over the next 5 years. I'm with you. I think that's maybe something, it wasn't addressed in the report that we received in terms of projections.
Maybe that's something you can bring up in the committee that you're going to be on.
Talk to God,
Yeah,
figure it out.
yeah.
Farmers all.
I mean, I
Have a
know,
meeting with farmers all the time.
That's a
Oh,
good
I'll
one.
go buy that.
Yeah, it
I'll
should be.
go read that.
I know there are academic resources in the city that are looking at these things,
Yeah,
and
we're
they're
not
not
the
looking
only
at it from the point of view of potentially getting an engineering job down the road.
It could be
And-
that
and
we
they have
do all
other
the work
things.
and spend much money on this project, and 3 years from now, the water level goes down, and it's not a problem anymore. But that's not to say it wouldn't be a problem again 5 or 10 years from now. So part of what
Well,
we're
we're
doing
taking
is,
it on as insurance.
it's a legacy project too. It's insurance, and it's, paying it forward a little bit, because this is going to be a problem again. How many 100-year floods have we had in the last 10 years?
Several.
Right, exactly. So, yes, the water could go down. I would anticipate the water going back up again. So, seems to me that,
Well,
I get what you're saying.
If we look at global warming and
Yeah.
increased rainfall, which we've had for the last 3 years,
Right.
then,
you would think it'd
and
go
I'm
up.
not a climate scientist, so, this is not the gospel, but
The other thing is it easier to build where the water levels are low? I mean, one estimate the,
Less expensive.
It would be less expensive because not everyone else would be doing it.
Yeah.
well, in terms of also just getting to the places and, even when we're fighting against the water to try to make this construction big. And so it's a kind of timing question too, in terms of, how long do you wait for water levels to go down if you're gonna try to?
It's a valid, it's a valid question. Maybe that's something that the committee can address when we get together.
Wait, are you suggesting hiring another engineering firm?
no.
Who is this that who is this, what company predicts the future?
I'm sure
Well, I
there's
don't-
some studies out there on
Yeah.
the Michigan water level and what they're
I mean, I know Lake Forest had a symposium a while ago, and unfortunately, I only read about it, after it had happened, where they had a professor from the University of Illinois. So these people are studying these things, they're looking at these things, and I think that it may be useful to turn to a more academic side of people studying lake levels. And, between Northwestern, UIC, and University of Chicago, which are all going to be flooded if the lake keeps going up.
How much did we spend on this report? 60. And so how much are we willing to commit for a second opinion?
Well, I'm
I don't
not
think it's
suggesting you
secondary.
pay anything.
I don't
I'm thinking,
Where are we gonna get, I guess that's a good question.
well, I'm thinking that information might be out there already somewhere, because we're not the only ones grappling with this.
I mean, I just saw the report that you sent us, which with Highland Park having spent evidently quite a bit of money just a few years ago on their beach, and now they're having to go and spend $300,000 getting sand.
Yeah.
And nobody has a crystal ball, so none of us know if this is the end of it. And we know that what we're paying for is insurance. And if the lake levels go down for 20 years, well, okay,
Still insurance.
it's insurance. But I think there must be some, we didn't get a forecast. We didn't get a best guess, let's say, of what's going to happen.
Because he won't do it.
We got a report. They said, this is what you should do.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, this is what you should do, but maybe it won't matter. Or maybe it'll help you for 2 years, and then it won't matter.
Maybe. I don't know how much you rely on the forecast.
I think we should know.
Yeah.
I mean, we're committing a lot, it's a lot of money.
But
And I think we should know those things before we,
It's another point of reference that maybe is out there already in academia somewhere, that one of the committee members will raise their hand and say, oh yeah, I've heard of that, let me do some research and check it out. I don't know. But no, I don't recommend that you spend another $40,000 or
Yeah,
something
because
on
I
water
don't know whether you're
study.
looking for a second opinion or you're looking for academic research. I mean, George
It
must.
sounded to me like it's more academic research on what's going on in the lake, where are we, and what's the projection for the next
Right.
5 to 25 years.
Right.
The academic research is still a little crystal ball though, I would think.
Oh, yeah.
And no one can predict really, so I don't know how, we couldn't really put a lot of faith in that, and we got it.
Yeah.
well, I think we'll have, assuming we have to have some kind of referendum, then we have to go to the residents of the community. I think they have to crystal ball, it's a lot of money. And you're asking people to take a pretty big increasing their taxes. And I think we should be able to point to things
It certainly wouldn't.
that
hurt
say,
to
this
have
supports
some
what we're trying to do.
But, okay, that's right.
You know, from a non-
Yeah, that's why Georgia was instrumental, because it's more of a look back than a look forward, and that's what I'm trying to say, right? Looking back at what's happened to our beaches and how we don't have a north part of our beach anymore because of erosion and life, and, you know, it is kids who didn't you all get those little rock tumbler things that just wears away the rocks and so forth. That's what's been happening to our beach. But I'm thinking, on the other hand, if you're looking for projections, we just don't have the bandwidth to do something like that. So would you want to have somebody who is accredited and has the ability to do a counter report to what the engineering study was, so that you can say more definitively that, okay, that this is what they're saying needs to be done? Are you looking for somebody to do a counter to?
I would start out, as you say, I mean, I would start out going to academia, for example, and at least finding out what work has been done that is published that we can access to, and find out what the science side of it is saying about the future of the lake. And again, I understand, it's all crystal ball. It's, you know, no one's going to give a guarantee. But given the trends in the weather, given the trend, because that's what we're talking about. I mean, rainfall is one of the primary determinants in lake level. And shouldn't we have something where we can go to the community and say, there's a scientific basis for what we're trying to do? I think it's going to be a heavy lift for the community to put up this kind of money for the beach. And as much as people like the beach and value the beach in Lake Bluff, I think the money we're looking at is absolutely not a slam dunk that we get it.
Well, I think that's why we're, putting a group together and involving the village and North Shore Sanitary and getting all the constituents involved, because it would be a lot of money for this park district.
And at the end of the day, residents are still paying tax to the village, the rec district, and the water reclamation district, whether it's one line on your tax bill or 3 lines on your tax bill.
Depending
It's all
on
going to be there.
Depending on how the money's raised.
Because I don't think we have the money in our operations when we can come up with.
No. All right, so I would suggest, just to cut it, because this could be a very long discussion, but it's a valid question. It's something that you guys just addressed at the committee level, and we have scientific evidence already that there is a problem.
For sure.
We don't have scientific evidence about, well, it wouldn't be evidence, it would be forecasting about water level and where that might be next year, the year after, and following. So maybe that's something someone on the committee would be willing to do some outside just research on. Maybe someone's got a contact, who knows, but just mentioned that it came up in one of our board meetings, and it would be, it may be beneficial to have that information down the road.
To bring this to the village and
Yeah.
this, sorry, okay, everybody together, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
To the blue ribbon committee.
Thank you for getting that in one more time.
Let's bring- do that, Robert.
The PBR.
Okay.
Just to add this really quickly, I won't be long, but I think to have historical pictures, I mean, not everyone goes down to the beach as often as, say, I do, but to have historical pictures so people can see, and like people can see, I took pictures, there were waves going over the, like onto the shelter. Like I
Yeah.
started, there was wet on the shelter, waves hit over it, like for people to see that, even if we don't know if it's gonna continue happening, I think there's some amount of understanding that people would have that, we're gonna try to protect this. This has been happening. We don't know if it's gonna continue to happen.
Right.
But in the case it does, we can lose our whole beach. And so I think that's a scary enough, you know, thing on its own.
Get a picture of where people watch fireworks this year and then show them what it looks like right now. Yeah.
Yeah, even in the one year, but you know, like the rock that's like now under tons of water that my kids used to sell themselves on 6 years ago. You know, like.
That is a great idea, though. And I was thinking, because one of my sons wants to study environmental science engineering, he's thinking applying to Northwestern, is maybe approaching Northwestern and seeing if one of the professors would take this on as a project maybe with the kids, with the students, and then you could get a big feedback from the class of students that are taking environmental science. Or maybe they're doing like, maybe do a thesis
Right.
and get like a group of kids, you know, students studying this, that are doing it for their career, and then you get a little, you know, more hands-on. That could be a possibility.
Mhm.
All right. Thank you. Parks and Beach, is that good?
Yeah.
All right. Finance, what would you like to add?
So we met a few weeks ago, talked quite a bit about racket sports. I don't think that we are done with the analysis of racket sports. I think that there are still missing pieces in terms of, you know, how it all kind of flows from membership and number of people to, you know, the financials. So, you know, we're also building a model that will help us forecast based on utilization, you know, what things could look like, and then potentially run some scenarios on that to see, you know, if we did X, what would happen, and if we did Y, what would happen. So I think we're still in the works with that, and I know that Ron, you know, is aware of that. And then we started talking about the budget, and we're starting to think about goals in terms of what we want to see in the budget. You know, we use 2019 as a reference, kind of, you know, in terms of the new board members and committee members, and kind of looking at what are we trying to accomplish. And so we've kind of we're working towards like a first draft. You know, potentially in the next couple of weeks we'll be able to, in the next week or so, Ron, I think we'll be able to share that back to your team and kind of say, hey, this is what we're thinking at this point, and then use the next committee meeting to dig in even deeper.
I see in the report here, mention of the 5-year capital improvement plan.
Yes,
Do we have,
that's
I mean,
part
it's kind of been on hold, it seems like, for a year. So now it's on hold for the OSLAD grant application, which may or may not be decided by the end of the year. I don't know when do you have any idea when they're gonna decide that? No. So what is our kind of contingency 5-year plan if we don't get the OSLAD grant, which I think is a fair assumption? It's 50-50 at best if we get it.
Yep.
So do we have a 5-year plan that we're working on, that we're building into the budget?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, but we're just gonna need to fine tune it, revise it based on, you know, the input of the staff.
Yeah.
So it's more about revising what was already built, and then identifying what are the opportunities for the grants that are earmarked at this point, and then we'll have to make a decision as to what we build in.
Okay.
For 2020, we're gonna focus obviously more on 2020.
It's a 5-year plan, but focus
5-year
on
plan,
the
yeah.
immediate
Yes,
needs.
yeah.
And we have that document when we were first looking at OSLAD, so we just need to tweak that document.
Right.
So.
Okay. Fair enough.
That's part of the process, so it'll be included in all that.
Great. Okay, tri-board. We haven't met as tri-board in months. Friends of Bluff Parks. Are you still the liaison?
I am still.
Great.
Thank you, I feel important. Keep June 20th on your calendar, that will be the Go Color Run. They've increased the number of participants from 300 to 500.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so that's really good. And June is very instrumental in the budget and putting everything together. It sounds like it's coming together very nicely. There was talk at the meeting as well about the preschool slide, because there was talk about the funding for that, and I guess that was We talked about, really trying to see what direction everything was gonna go in terms of how the funding was gonna be.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other commissioner comments? No? President's report, I do not have one. Can I get approval for the minutes, motion to approve the minutes of August 26th, please?
So moved.
Second?
Roll call.
Commissioner Beeler?
Yes.
Commissioner Greenfield?
Yes.
Commissioner Lane? Commissioner McHenry?
Yes.
Commissioner Patera?
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh?
Yes.
President Mossberger?
Yes. We have invoices for ACH payments for September. And then we have invoices for payments made for the period ending October 1st and October 28th.
You can
Can
wrap
I get a motion, yeah, to approve all of those? Please. Sorry, are there any questions on anything that was in there? I actually did have one on. What is time clock plus for $8,100?
Time Clock Plus is our timekeeping system, which is, you see over here, where people check
You
in.
pay once a year?
So, no, that is over a 3-year period, they did not, and it's a maintenance fee. In 2017, we paid $2,000 or something like that. They didn't charge us in 2018 and 2019, which they said that's their fault. We do not have to pay it. So, this is a 3-year, but it's a prepaid, so it starts, not really.
So we got 2 years for free and we're paying 3 years.
Right, so in 2020, 21, and 22, we'll take a third of that charge of that $8,100.
From an accounting standpoint?
Yes.
Okay.
But this is for our employees, the number of employees that clock in,
Yeah.
so there's a maintenance fee.
I've just never seen it before. It was
Yeah,
that wasn't a question. Okay, sorry. Anyone else have anything in there? I didn't see anything else that was stuck out. Okay, so now I'd love to entertain a motion to approve all of that.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Beeler?
Yes.
Commissioner Greenfield?
Yes.
Commissioner Lane? Commissioner McHenry?
Yes.
Commissioner Patera?
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh? Walsh?
I'll abstain, due to a relationship with the vendor on the list.
President Mossberger?
Yes. Okay, on to finance, the monthly and year-to-date reports, starting on page 32. Ron, do you have anything you want to
Tom was just going to
say, or should we not? Tom's gonna.
Sure. So this report is as of 9/30, which is the end of the third quarter. As you can see in the write-up, 96% of budgeted property taxes have been collected at the end of September. And I know we've already received at least one installment in October. From a year-to-date standpoint, the general and the recreation fund are below budget. However, based, on a positive note, based on the 2019 projections, both funds are trending to be better than budget at year end. And those projections were put together or finalized last week. So,
Based on what?
Yeah, so how does,
Yeah. How do you-
so the general is how much below? It's hard to read this because the 175 extra is in there, which really shouldn't count towards any general performance.
the general fund is about $27,000.
Yeah.
Under,
Yes, under.
and that catches up as we do what?
Well, it could be, maybe the budget was heavy in one month and the expenses in another month, so some of it may be a catch-up type of deal. you know, because the revenue, we're not gonna, I don't believe we're gonna see a heck of a lot more revenue, during the last quarter. It's gonna be more on the expenditure side.
Okay, so let's skip the general fund.
You wanna go to page 34?
Let's go to page 35, which is the rec fund. How are you catching up $81,000?
So,
And getting ahead by the end of the year, we've got 3 months. We got 2 months, but 3 months of financials.
right, so, one of two ways. One is we may see some increase in revenue for the last quarter, whether it be programs or racket or some of our other facilities. The other is, where we may make it up is if our expenditures budgeted in the last quarter was heavier than the first 9 months, and then we don't expend that money, we're gonna make up money that way.
So I mean, I get the concept, but you led off your comments by saying, based on our forecast, we're gonna be ahead by the end of the year.
Yes.
Why are you so sure? Because in the last comment you just made is, well, if this maybe happens, then we're gonna be in okay shape. But it sounded like you guys had already made some projections that you feel good about. So what is that you're projecting?
I think, go ahead.
Yeah, why don't I go through a couple of big areas?
Okay.
Okay, that
might
might
help.
Sure, so we'll start with rec programs, we'll start with preschool. So with preschool, we still have, I think, around $70,000 that have not been accounted for on the books yet for the months of November, December, because that's all deferred revenue. So when people pay their tuition, we see it every month. So there's not gonna be as much expenses anymore within preschool because we already paid for a lot of the expenses other than paying salaries at this point moving forward. We've already paid for all the program supplies that's coming up. You know, we paid for a lot of those expenses that you won't see here other than personnel expenses at this point. So the revenues are going to exceed the personnel expenses from now until the end of the year. So preschool is going to be a big number for that.
Okay.
Then I would move into enrichments as well. Revenue is going to exceed personnel salaries and, you know, any of that. So that's going to exceed because all the expenses is minimal when it comes to enrichments. Again, everything usually is paid for in the month of September for those expenses starting off that school year or those programs. So you're not going to see any of that on commodities. I'm just kind of going in order. Camps is already done. Camps, we're done with that. Camps actually was a big highlight for us. We exceeded budget and revenue, and we exceeded the bottom line in net. So, you know, that's obviously already reflected in here.
Where do we see preschool? Where is that?
That's wrapped in recreation programs.
That's in programs.
Yeah.
So that's down 22,000.
Yeah, we're actually catching up because
So
of.
you'll catch up because of what you just said in that category.
Yes, the big reason why we're down is, if you recall, after-school care in the last half of the school year of last year. So that would be January through May. We were down in enrollment with after-school care. So we did not see that revenue growth that we were anticipating, as well as we were one short competition team with dance last year. This year, we picked up that competition team. So, and we have additional enrollment. So again, we don't have as many expenses when it comes to, other than paying our instructors at this point, moving forward.
And there's some things that expense, I think, as Tom was talking about, like golf. So we budgeted $25,000 in capital for golf. We've only expended $7,000 or $8,000, and we don't anticipate any other expense.
Well, there were some expenses that you're going to invoice golf visions for.
We shouldn't have to, for the
Oh.
capital expense, so it's
Okay.
only $7,000. And then there's the $25,000 where we paid out already, or they owe us $25,000 for the golf lease, the golf cart lease. And so we had to expend it this month, or this September. So we thought originally we were gonna have it in September, but we didn't get it. So we
And Tom, I certainly hope you're right, but I'm looking at this report, you know, and the total rec fund down 80, and I've got the pool down, the rec programs down, the racket sports down, health and fitness down. And I just have a hard time believing that all of those are gonna turn, and maybe it's not that all of them individually will turn positive by the end of the year, but the majority would have to in order for the bottom to be positive at the end of the year, so.
Yeah, I mean, health and fitness expenses are up 34,000.
So last year, when the budget was created for health and fitness, under the group exercise, the yoga was not included in that, and that's a big number. So that's a program we're offering with the membership, which is a good move because we did see the uptick in membership increases. And I don't know if that's a direct reflection of that, but I will say that group instruction was not budgeted for, because that's where it got moved to Group X.
So you're
And then the other one was,
4,000 in revenues, but you
we also
increased
paid,
your
I'm sorry, what's the
expenses
question?
by 34.
What was the question?
Well, you did that after the budget was prepared. That's what it sounds like, right? After the budget was approved, you then decided to make yoga part of the monthly membership and not an additional charge.
I thought that was already decided while the budget was.
Go ahead.
No, I don't know if I have that answer.
No, yoga, no one was signing up for the general programs. They were at zero. So we started to bring yoga in-house, and so we picked up more memberships that way by bringing it into the membership. So there was also expense related to Katie, so we had to take on that. We didn't have a manager, so we had her for almost 6 months of her salary, pretty much.
But didn't we budget to have a manager?
Right, but that manager was split up between pool and beach. We've gone through line item by line item and the projections, and we feel good. I mean, Tom's just starting, so in all fairness to him, but we've gone through line by line by line, and Tom's
Can you-
comfortable with that.
The yoga thing doesn't make sense to me. Can you just clarify that for Monday? I don't want to put you on the spot today, but
No,
we had planned on certain revenue in the budget,
Mhm.
and then we made a decision after the budget was finalized to shift something. There should have been a counter to the shift. If it was going to cost us that much on the revenue side.
I can find out. I was not part of that conversation, so I have to.
So that's even more unfair than for me to ask you. So, Ron, if you could help, that'd be great. And then just report, back to our group, and we can let the
Yeah.
bigger group know.
Yeah, we just need to understand the that kind of that component of the expense on the 34,000 of expense variation on health and fitness, the 44,000 on revenue variation in rec programs, and the 20,000 in pool revenue. Because you can't make up your revenue at 20,000 in pool revenue. I mean, we're not making that up, so we're gonna have to make up somewhere else, and I get that. But that's still $20,000 off, and rec programs $44,000 off. So those are just the big ticket items that,
Yeah.
yeah. But if you guys feel good about coming back, please, to
Yeah,
budget
well-
that as a whole.
Yeah, one other big program that doesn't have really any expense related this year until next year is basketball. So we anticipate somewhere between $15,000 to $20,000 in revenue that's still coming in youth athletics. That really we don't see any expense until we start games and hire scorekeepers and officials.
Yeah.
So we start to receive that in November and December. So there's, like I said, there's about
And the other thing
Is
15
that
to 20.
revenue budgeted?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, okay, so that wouldn't help us versus
No,
budget.
but it catches up, I guess, is what I'm saying. So next month, when you see the monthly budget, it'll catch up on here. It'll show that we're closing that gap that you're referring to.
I think despite, what we're seeing on the rec program, on the rec fund, if you look at the total year to date, we're ahead.
We're
Am I right? We're 34, actual to budget, we're 51,000.
Yeah, but that's only because it's got nothing to do with operational performance. It's because we received both halves of the $350,000 grant.
That's the delta?
That's the delta.
We had
So we're
budgeted
really
for 175.
So we're really 100 behind.
Correct.
Is that right? No?
Or 80 something behind.
Well, for year to date.
Correct.
For your, yes.
You have to back that number out. I even made a comment down
The
there.
175.
It would be helpful to have that backed
Yeah.
out,
It should be.
or at least a footnote or something on here,
Okay, that was.
because that's making it look way better than it is. It's great to have the cash, don't get me wrong, but
Shouldn't have 374. The actual.
Yes, that's the one.
it should have, yeah, it should
Shouldn't
have.
that number.
Yeah, it's the 189 there that is making the bottom line look better. Right, so Ron, when you say you think you're gonna end up on budget, is that assuming the 189?
Operationally,
No, that's
taking
gotta,
it out. I mean,
that's gotta be backed out.
It's backed up.
No, so he's saying he's gonna make it without,
Without.
not because of that extra.
Correct.
He's gonna make it without.
You're gonna make it without, that's what I'm trying
That's
to
what
get
he's saying.
clarification.
For tentatively, or that's why we don't have a number, but we have gone line by line.
And you're thinking that you're gonna make it without that extra
That's
180?
what we're saying right now.
Okay, all right, good, we just wanted to understand. Okay,
Wait, Jim, let me ask you a quick question. When we do a, joint basketball program with Blue Forest, how do we split? Do we get, like, if 80% of the people are from like Bluff, do we get 80% of the revenue?
That would be correct. Unfortunately, we don't get 80% of the enrollment. We basically, we split the bill by percentage of participants, okay? Lake Forest pays for quite a bit of, like, they do the uniforms, they pay for that. We have to pay for Deer Path, we have to pay for instructors and sometimes coaches and then the officials and scorekeepers. So essentially, Lake Forest, they'll submit their bill to us, give us our invoice with the amount of revenue and the revenue split, you know, whatever participants we have, and we submit our invoice as well. That's how we're able to actually staff additional people that can help with the gym at that time and become like a gym supervisor, and that allows us because we have to pay so much to Lake Forest and that shrinks that invoice. So during the winter time, it's nice when we have basketball because we can have additional employee on staff that can help out in many different areas, not just in that one focus
Oh,
area.
okay.
Yeah, but that's how we split it.
What's the breakout usually, percentage?
Usually, boy, it's pretty close to that 80-20. You know, it's sometimes it hovers 70-30. You know, but look at their population versus
Yeah, that makes
ours.
sense.
You know.
That makes sense.
I was gonna point to you, but I don't know if this is you or Ron, but if you could also clarify the personnel expense in the health and fitness, because it just, conceptually, it doesn't make sense to me that if we never hired Tim's replacement, but we had planned to hire Tim's replacement, that our operating performance relative to budget would be $34,000 off in the personnel category. I know that Katie's working 35 hours instead of 20 hours, but again, we're not paying for the fitness center manager. There should be a savings there that's greater than the 15 extra hours of Katie's time. So to me, it just doesn't make sense. So if you look at that, that's great.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, anything else on finance? If not, we need to motion to accept. You want to accept those? Yeah.
Something that's not from.
Okay.
Actually, I did have a question on racket sports, page 37. I know that there was a correction made in terms of revenues that we're recognizing in 2019 versus 2018. Is that some, is that, I'm assuming it's included on page 37? Is that why we are performing, like, it looks like we're doing good from a budget perspective. We're right on budget. But does that include the revenues that had not been recognized in 2018?
Not fair to ask you, you weren't here for that part.
No, but I've been in the conversations.
Oh, no, I was talking to Tom.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I've been in a lot of these
Anybody, it doesn't matter.
conversations.
I'm just wondering if that's what's helping the the number, but it's kind of a little bit inflated.
Yeah,
I'm trying to recall
I've
what
been holding
the,
off on paddle commentary, waiting for the,
I'd have to go back and look.
waiting for our next meeting on it. I'm not sure if.
Because it looks right now right on budget.
Yeah, and there's, still revenue to be recognized for the next 2 months.
For the paddle.
For paddle, yeah, and I'm trying to think what that number is. I just put it in for the projections, because I actually looked at it, for, revenue, report, so.
So if you
Yeah.
can verify that too, that these are
Yeah.
correct as modified for the previous revenue recognition issue, that'd be.
Yeah, it's right on to,
Plus,
I won't speak to it, so, okay, sorry. We'll clarify that.
Just want to make sure. I mean, it's.
We'll get it out, I'll get it
It's
out.
revenue, we're not going to turn away revenues, right?
Right.
But
Yeah.
just wanted to know.
I do know tennis exceeded its, budgeted revenue, so I do know that,
it's good.
yeah. So it was, I think, 68,000 at the end of October, and
I think
we
that's
budgeted
it's
63.
just one.
Absolutely.
I think it's can I get a motion, please, to accept the financial reports?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Beeler,
Yes.
Commissioner Greenfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane, Commissioner McKendry,
Yes.
Commissioner Patera,
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh,
Yes.
President Mossberger.
Yes. Purchase cards, can I get a motion to ratify the purchase card payment?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Beeler,
Yes.
Commissioner Greenfield,
Yes.
Commissioner Lane,
Yes.
Commissioner McKendry,
Yes.
Commissioner Patera,
Yes.
Commissioner Walsh,
Yes.
President Mossberger.
Yes. All right, moving to new business. The first one is the tax levy for next year's budget, which I know that the finance committee spent some time on and has a recommendation for us. Franz, do you or another member of the group want to provide some commentary? Who's on the group? You are. Yeah.
Okay.
You want to just let us know how you arrived at your decision?
Well, we arrived at our decision based on the fact that we have financial needs in the district. We want to try to meet those financial needs partially by keeping up with the cost of living expenses, that's normal. There was some discussion about the optics of increasing the tax levy to the cost of living limitation, just because we will have things like the beach coming up where we may have to, hit the people with a lot higher increase. And I think one of the things that had come up is that there generally is very little comment about cost of living increases with the tax levy. That people accept it, it's kind of normal, and so there seemed to be no reason to not do it this year, especially since we're trying to put everything back on a financially sound basis.
Right.
It's 1.9%. Most years, the tax levy has gone through. There have been a couple years where either tax levy was voted against or it was reduced. And our understanding was that those were years when there were other bond issues, such as for cattle, I believe was one of them.
The referendum.
Okay, the referendum. And in those specific years, when there was then not an increase done from a cost of living point of view.
Right.
So based on that, it seemed like a responsible thing to do. Franz brought up very correctly, as I alluded to earlier in this meeting, that we should have the programs paying for more as well as the general taxpayers. And that we should look to increase fees, certainly by that 1.9%. I mean, that's not very much. But that we should look at the people who use the programs to kick in their share in addition to the general population.
So I'll repeat one thing I brought up at our committee meeting for the benefit of the others. And you all know this, but I'll just lay it out simply because I work that way. But we have two main revenue sources. About half of our revenue comes from the tax receipts and half comes from program revenue. So, and our expenses are our expenses. And we know the expenses are going up by 8% for healthcare, plus some merit increases potentially, plus other expenses, commodities and everything else is going to be going up by the CPI. Today we're talking about half of our revenue going up by the 1.9. I'm in total agreement that we need to figure out how to get the other revenue up by at least 1.9. And let's be honest, the 1.9 increase on the revenue side is not going to cover the increase in our expenses. So we're going to need.
So at the lower end, at least 1.9.
I was just going to say, we need to, through a combination of increased participation and usage as well as increased fees, generate more revenue just to stay even.
And we
So
need to
again,
know where it's
I've
coming
said
from.
that a few times.
Right.
But, so your guys' recommendation was
So, a few more comments just
Yeah.
to add to that is just, we need to understand how our costs of being in business are gonna go up year over year. And we need to understand what that number is, and then we need to, figure out a way to generate that on the, either on the revenue side or on the lower, on the revenue side, one way or another, right? So I don't think anybody wants to dictate exactly how, but we've got to have a method to, if it's not a price increase, then what are you banking on? So we need to kind of have that narrative to say, okay, well, we're going to keep up at least with our costs, with the cost increases this way, right? And it can't just be on the taxpayers, that's just not fair. So we've got to figure that out in terms of how much our costs are really going to go up and target a way to, whether it's through volume or through price, but we've got to believe that we're going to get volume if we don't get price, that kind of thing. The other thing is, there is a known or anticipated, I guess, minimum wage mandatory increase, and that was part of our discussion. And minimum wage is going up. We don't have a choice in that. And so part of this increase is because of that. So our costs are going to increase, not just the 8% of healthcare of what we do, but also on the minimum wage side. We need to understand, again, as a total, how much are our costs going to go up? Because even if we take the 1.9 tax levy, that's $60,000, right? And so I don't want to say that that's going to fund like necessarily another paddle court. I want to say that that's going to cover some of the minimum wage, things that maybe we didn't know about, and we're going to cover our costs through a combination of things. Now, my preferred, this is the recommendation, is we need to be able to know what the $60,000 increase that we're getting from the taxpayers is going to go towards. And we've got to have that, we've got to be comfortable with that. These are tax dollars, we're increasing it, what are they going towards, right?
Right.
And then what else are we doing to cover these other costs? So, I think that's what the recommendation was, understanding the minimum wage, understanding that costs do go up, the cost of living does go up. But it'd be nice if we could earmark that for something like the beach. Okay, you know, yes, maybe we did increase, but we know we're anticipating certain things, or we're anticipating something else, or whatever. But we just need to know what that's gonna be used for.
Ron said a good question about minimum wage. We didn't have the answer for our committee, and so we've been spending a lot of the day with those personnel matters. But Tina or Tom, to maybe outline what we think we're at. It's a very kind of complicated minimum wage. It sounds strange, but Tom, you want to give a quick synopsis?
Sure. So based on 2009 personnel structure, we had, was that
2018.
19? 107 employees making less than $10 an hour. And if you don't know, minimum wage is going to be a two-step program in 2019. So $9.25 January 1st, $10 July the 1st, and then it goes up $1 every January 1st until 2025 when it reaches $15. Anyway, and we don't have exact numbers, but just some quick, easy math. You know, if we just say 100 employees at working 300 hours during the summer, you know, at $1 increase, that's $30,000. Okay. If we have employees making, you know, minimum wage 8.25, okay, you know, 8.50, etc. So, you know, it's a complicated formula that needs to be put together, but like I said, just for a quick.
No, but that's really helpful.
It's helpful, it gives us
Well,
a
that's
sense.
30, and then we know that the healthcare costs are 17, so that right there is 47 of your 60.
Which is spreading on out over the 5-year period.
Spreading what out?
Minimum wage.
Not
No.
a dollar.
That's a
dollar.
dollar. Yeah, you're gonna have another kicker the following year, and another kicker the
Well,
following.
right, and that's the scary part, is by 2025, it's gonna be $15 an hour.
Yeah,
Okay.
So that's-
Yeah,
And
it's
so,
30 grand a year
that's 30 grand a
for
year
the
that's
next
going up.
5 years.
you know, and so how do we make that up?
Right,
You know, and it could be more than 30 grand a year, because then you start reaching into employees that are making less than that. Let's just say in 2023, when it's $13 an hour, some of our employees maybe at $11.50 would be getting an increase.
yeah.
That wouldn't receive it in
The
2020.
first 2 years, yeah.
You know, so,
Okay, so it's complicated, but at least it gives us a ballpark. I think it's good that we continue to look at what that means for us. But that was one of the factors that we
That's a good
used
point. I wasn't
in
even
order,
thinking about
in
that.
terms of the CPI that came up.
Yeah.
Isn't there an age, the minimum wage too, though?
yeah, so if you're under 18 and work less than 650 hours, you could receive a reduced minimum wage.
And aren't most of
So
the employees
a
in the
lot of
are
hours.
under 18?
Well, there are some.
For the summer.
And actually, all of our aquatic staff, other than concessions and guest services, are already receiving $10 or more an hour
They're already.
already. We did that this year.
Okay, well, let's keep doing this analysis to
Yeah,
understand. roughly
So we
what-
can shrink that down.
Yeah. But again, we can't absorb it just on taxpayer dollars, you know what I mean? It has to be, you know, the fees have to go up because the cost of service is going up. And we can't apologize for that.
One of the things you brought up there was volume. How are we addressing?
How loud?
That's a good one. That's a bring it on the spot.
No, I'm saying, you know, I think we need to raise price unless we believe that, you know, there's a reason the staff believes, or the committee believes, or Ron believes that there's going to be an increase in volume.
And that's tricky with a town of 8,000
Yeah.
and not much growth. And,
Right.
and we have to be realistic in how many fitness members are we really going to get. I mean, we're already, you did an analysis of how many.
Family pool memberships. So, you know, that's gonna be, I always thought that's our growth, our family pool memberships. We're serving 77% of families with elementary and middle school kids with pool memberships
Already.
already.
That's high.
That is a very high number.
Is that
And the
right?
rest are
That's
lower.
like Bluff only, or-
Lake Bluff Park District are boundaries. Those that are attending Lake Bluff Elementary School and the middle school, we're serving 50% of, utilizing the US Census, we're serving 50% of the preschoolers. So that's for top pool.
That's
So we may have to eventually get creative, where we said at one point in time, before this board was really in place, we said to Corey, was the referendum. The referendum is not to give resident rates to Lake Forest. In order to draw more people in, that might have to be just a thought and a discussion, is that was, you know, back then, that was 5 years ago, knowing where we're at and knowing all these costs, we may want to revisit that, and that's what staff and I have to bring up to you.
Sure.
You should gift it to Lake Forest, the pool. You gift the pool.
All right, moving on.
Yeah.
So no, any more questions? So we know what your recommendation
That's the
is.
recommendation, that's
So, anyone with any other comments, questions? Emily, do you want to talk about this still some more? Which is fine.
No, I just feel like, you have to, it can't always just be price increase, there has to be some
Productivity.
and cuts too. You have to cut things out too. You can't just keep building. You kind of have to pick and choose what you want to make really good. But you can't keep adding programs, because that costs money, right? The instructors cost money. So sometimes picking a couple good things and focusing on that, we just can't keep adding things too, because that costs money. And so my thing is, well, how do we figure out how to get more money? Well, raise the prices, and I think sometimes you need to look at, well, maybe we need to cut some things, make it a little thinner here, maybe just having fewer programs so that you don't have so many employees. So, yeah, so my concern is with always raising the price, yeah. I'm not comfortable with it. Everything's being raised. I mean, all the taxes and stuff. I really think we need to be, that's our job here, is trying to find solutions. And when I hear raise the price, I think that's just one solution. I really think we gotta make sure we're trying to come up with different solutions to the problem, not just one solution.
What's our current ratio with campers to counselors?
We meet that requirement, depends on the age group, but technically, most of our elementary kids would be 1 to 10.
But is that all mandated by the state?
There are some policies we have to adhere
So
to.
we don't make it up?
No.
So do we have to designate if we do vote for the CPI, that it has to be used for a certain area?
No.
Just say that is there a messaging though, do we have, should we say something? Or just?
Well, we wanted to, in the budget document, we want to make sure that we clearly outline, you know, what it's being used for. I guess that was the request.
And I think we know it's personnel expense,
Personnel expense, medical expenses.
which is still personnel, so, yeah. Any other thoughts or comments? Thank you. Nikki, anything, or, okay.
Are you guys meeting to discuss fitness on Monday?
Yeah.
What time?
6:30.
6:30.
Yeah.
Jim, will you run the current numbers of how many people are attending yoga?
Yeah, I was
left
gonna ask that too.
I've left a few classes of a really popular fitness class to leave and see only like less than 5 people in yoga class.
I was just there today, and there were 10 people in the program. And when I go to
There's
see
some that are big, there's some that are small.
Yeah.
No, yeah, that's
The one
fine.
I know.
Yeah.
The one on Thursdays, and
It's by class, you know, they're not all,
Yeah,
they
they're
don't all have the same
not
attendance.
all classes have 10 person.
Right.
And
So
I
if
think
you
that's
pay an
also
instructor.
like, I think the newer instructor, like, the new instructor on Thursdays is newer, and so, yeah, she has less people going to her class, because I've done her class, and they're pretty much like 10 people.
Right, but what I'm saying is like when there's a fitness class that has 25 people in it, a cardio class that has
Yeah.
25 people, the next class has 3 or 4 people,
Yeah.
maybe there should be another fitness class, a cardio class instead of the yoga class. That's what I'm saying, like,
Okay, why don't you come on Monday? Let's finish the levy
okay.
discussion. Why don't you come on Monday with your great ideas? And we can talk through that kind of stuff, because I don't have any of that.
But I was thinking
So
the
that's
same
helpful.
thing.
Were you?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just based on my observations
Yeah, me too.
as a user.
Okay, so I hear you. I hear you, and I would love to be in a financial position where we didn't need to, take the levy increase. And maybe, you know, when some of the debt rolls off and we're in a different financial position, in 2020, whatever that is, we'll be there. But just my opinion is, I don't think we're there yet. So I will entertain
It's just a game.
consensus, so we're not voting
We'll
on it.
approve it in December.
Oh,
November,
okay,
December.
fine.
So we had to include it in the
Do
budget.
we have consensus?
Well, I think there may be one dissenter,
There might be others.
and there may be other dissenters, but is there anyone else who feels, that we should not be taking the increase? Or all of the increase? Right. Nikki, you're fine with it? Okay. So you have consensus, but not unanimity.
Yeah,
It's hard to say.
that's good.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
That's right.
Okay. So more to come on that. Great. The health, we did that.
Okay.
Sorry, so the health benefits, you need us to
Just one, we would need to approve
these.
basically all that to
Okay.
the employees and let them know.
And I know that we joined with the village and the library to be a part of a bigger pool, and, it's 8%, but that actually isn't all that bad based on what I'm hearing out in the market right now. Maybe you've got experience too of hearing of some double-digit, increases on this stuff, so it's not, sucks, it's 8%, but it could be a lot worse. We weren't part of the bigger group. Yeah. So I think we're getting the benefit of being part of the larger group, it's just healthcare costs are rising and we're having to pay our share of that. So I don't know that at this point we really have a better alternative.
So is this new then, the grouping of the
As
insurance?
of a couple years ago, we used to do it on our own, we used to do it
We used to
through-
be independent, we were with the village and library, but the 3 of us were on our own, we were not part of a pool.
And is
So
it
now
better
we're
now?
part of the larger
Better
pool.
prices
We've
because
been
it's-
taking bigger increases, and it's because the pool is wanting to build up reserves. So, before we joined the pool, they were only around 3%, 4%, but they were sometimes not even increasing. And so their reserves started to come down, and so that's why some of this pricing is.
Who's in the pool?
There's other villages, mostly villages, other North Shore communities. So it's still
I've heard
reasonable.
of Aon having a health exchange that seems to be very competitive. It allows a lot more options, and they're pooling from, much larger numbers in terms of multi-millions of employees. I don't know if you know about that, AON
No.
Health Exchange or something like that?
The hard thing is we're tied into,
To this
this
group.
intergovernmental agreement with the village, and it gets expensive to come out of it.
For how long have we not?
I'd have to, I'll
I mean,
take a look
10
at it.
years or
No, but it's,
5?
yeah, maybe it's 3 to 5, I'd have to revisit that, the board approved that before. I think it came out.
Definitely is something that we should look at with some frequency, I mean, not every year, because I know this is a big time commitment and exercise, but every 3 years? And just see if there's something different and better out there, so,
I'll take a look at that.
and make sure that what we have is still very competitive for our size group, so.
It does change constantly. I'm an independent contractor, so we buy our own insurance, and our guy is bringing us new options every year.
All the time.
Yeah, changing, I get a new number, I'm constantly getting new cards every year.
Wow.
And it's not fun to change, I understand, that's why you
But you
can't,
get better.
but you
get
save.
Better price.
Yeah. Yes, I think it's worth it, I agree.
Yearly?
I mean, maybe check it out, you know, but I don't think we can change that often, we check it out, but
Yeah,
yeah,
it is a pain.
it's just not.
Yeah, new doctors, new,
Yeah.
I don't know, it's hard.
Yeah.
It's disruptive.
All right, can I get a motion to approve the employee contribution levels for health, dental, and vision to remain the same, and the spousal surcharge to increase to 50%?
So moved.
Second?
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bueller?
Yes.
Commissioner Greenfield?
Yes.
Commissioner Lane?
Yes.
Commissioner McHenry?
Yes.
Commissioner Patera?
Yes.
Commissioner Welch?
Yes.
President Muslin?
Yes. Next is the surplus. I'll just skip straight to a motion to approve the ordinance.
So, I'm confused, is this for the yacht club, these motorboats? Yes,
Jim?
So there's just motors.
What's that?
yeah.
Oh, yeah, those are for Lake Bluff Yacht Club. Yeah. We're not sure when they originally, or who purchased them, but they're our property now, but they don't.
We don't
need them.
Yeah, they're excess.
We just
But
purchased
we
2
didn't
new
buy them?
motors.
Did you buy them originally?
I'm assuming we bought them with the Lake Bluff Yacht Club, but that's an
Usually we do
assumption.
50 for the last 10 years, and longer than I've been here, instead of 50/50 split, I just got all our expenses.
Are you so fine that you would like to make a motion?
I'd like to make a motion to approve the ordinance 2019-E, declaration of surplus personal property and authorization for sale, trade-in, or disposal.
Beautiful. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Bueller?
Yes.
Commissioner Greenfield?
Yes.
Commissioner Lane?
Yes.
Commissioner McHenry?
Yes.
Commissioner Patera?
Yes.
Commissioner Welch? President Muslin?
Yes. All right, correspondence, I'm seeing right here, a piece of academic I was looking for, about spooky high water levels.
Yeah, that's a technical.
Done, just take this for a
Did it.
minute. Wasn't much in here other than the 125th anniversary. How are we participating in?
So we'll be the site for the main event, the fireworks, as well as the actual
We
food
voted on
vendors.
that, right, yeah, at the golf course.
So, and we're potentially using the circle for food vendors, so we have the police, fire. But also there's a list of events they'd like us to consider, some type of winter, not winter carnival, but, having sled races and just being park district, who we are from when we first started.
Okay.
So we're gonna be brainstorming on various events that don't cost us a whole lot of money, but that are creative.
There are 2 women on the Friends Board as well, who are liaisons to
Oh, great.
as well. So they're looking into things, one of the things that was brought up was the historical markers, which I guess are going to be different from the engraved bricks. But unless anyone has anything new about what these historical markers are, they're not engraved bricks. These are, okay.
No.
Okay.
So is the winter day for kids and
There's about 50 items that they've outlined for us to maybe consider to run or operate, and I think we have to wait and see how much time we run.
And I know a lot of people want to do events here at our park district. Kiwanis reached out and they want to be the ones hosting or running the hockey tournament in January. And if you haven't noticed, we do have Buddy the dog out in front. Pam Russell, I was working with her to have the dog displayed throughout the holiday season. So you'll see Buddy dressed up. He'll be on a sleigh.
So does the park district, are we a sponsor that money?
We're just helping out with the dog. We will be purchasing our own dog, that will have the preschoolers paint and stuff, so we'll have a lot of
And
fun.
then
with
we'll
that.
sell it, and that will go back to the preschool playground.
Oh, that's great.
Oh, well, as it says, it all goes to the History Museum.
Well, no, if we buy it, then we can sell.
We can control that.
Yes, yeah, one thought that I brought up to the anniversary group was doing a commemorative dog tag and increasing that fee and having that portion go to the beach.
Love it.
You know, so instead of $10 a tag, maybe we do 25.
Yeah, so much more.
Yeah, that's
To be able to get out there.
So do the proceeds from this go to the museum or to the group to throw the party?
History Museum.
To the party, my understanding.
It's
Yeah.
Well,
party.
but the net would go to the history.
Well, it's to the party, and then they help the people that are doing all the different
Yep.
departments in town.
Okay.
And everybody can do their own event and use those proceeds to whatever they want to do.
Okay. I wrapped up. Are we, that's our last
Is there a
thing.
motion to adjourn?